Hello,
Hello.
and welcome
Uh,
to our bonus chat.
yes. Let's hop right into it while my wife is still listening. She gives like two minutes for any podcast or broadcast to get to the point. She's very busy and important, or she will bolt. So something we'd want to discuss was an article that had been circulating. I think it was had popped up. Charlie Sykes had quoted it in the Bulwark. Uh, let's see, it's about sort of, oh my God, stop freaking out is a bad response to right wing freakouts. And the concept here, the author is Jeff Mara, who had written for Last Week Tonight, amongst other things, defines himself as a liberal. And uh, the concept here is that we are perhaps being unfair when we point out that Tucker Carlson is going crazy about M&Ms and when he talks about how they turned the green M&M into a frumpy lesbian and stuff like that, because in reality, they're just responding to goofy stuff that liberals have done. We've gone too far in many cases. Sort of we've started it is the concept here. So what is your take on this? I can quote some of the article down the line, but just if you
Oh,
can
I think it's
summarize your idea of it.
absolute nonsense. I think it's absolute nonsense. First of all, no one is saying, oh my God, stop freaking out. That's not a thing. We are laughing at them for freaking out because their freakouts are stupid and over stupid things. Like, no, that's not, he's addressing a problem that literally no one has.
Well,
Additionally, Republicans will always find something to be freaking out about. That's literally what they do. And, you know, we could be as boring as shit and they would still find things to freak out about. So,
I'm going to quote Charlie Sykes here. He says, all right, think gas stoves or the fight over Mr. Potato Head, Dr. Seuss, and a Twix commercial. So just quickly here, gas stoves, it is not as if it's true. Republicans are not freaking out over nothing. There are studies that concerns that gas stoves will kill you and kill your children, and perhaps over time, maybe we should not allow gas stoves. But no one's doing anything right now. They're actually studying it or considering it. It's like a big thing. I've written about this in the past. Um, and then the right wing response from elected officials is literally all caps. Like, it still astonishes me. I'm, in my late 40s, but still it astonishes me when I see elected officials tweeting like the letters I used to get 30 years ago as an intern and would throw away into the Crazy Pal. And then later at lunch, all the reporters would get together and read the Crazy Pal, the letters to the editor. We never print those because it's all caps and unhinged. But you would get literal sitting members of Congress talking about, you will never take my gas stove away from me or whatever. That's not rational. So,
yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
mean, I'm not going to.
basically, the point of those things is to shut down any conversation whatsoever. It's no one can discuss anything because we're going to throw a tantrum no matter what you do. You can't discuss you can't even look into whether gas stoves are good or bad, or, if they're going to kill you, because we don't want to know. We're just going to freak out about it no matter what. And I will say that I hate my gas stove. I would like an electric stove, but
Mr. Potato Head was just, again, companies make branding issues all the time on perceived. If it's silly, you can make fun of it on TV. But again, having sitting members of Congress or a news program, it's sort of imagining Walter Cronkite going crazy about new Coke. Can you imagine? Like, that wouldn't be, it's like, okay, that's a bad idea, but you wouldn't have a whole 60 minutes thing based on, I mean, Andy Rooney did that. I guess everyone became Andy Rooney,
yeah.
but it's just not rational. This is like Fox News ain't, their primetime lineup, their daytime lineup, freaking out over even the most silly advertising choices. Dr. Seuss was, again, the actual estate of Dr. Seuss saying, okay, well, some of our stuff that no one's read, it
Yeah,
ain't the
like,
Grinch, it's not, the Horton Hears a Who or whatever. It's some of the other stuff's like, okay, this is kind of racist. We're not gonna, put it out there anymore.
mhm,
Similar to when they got rid of Splash Mountain because
yeah.
that's related to a
Oh
movie
God,
that no one has seen, whatever.
did you
And their
see the
response,
bags of water?
they're holding bags of Splash Mountain. That's absurd. So yes, we're
They're
going to
selling them
report
on
on it.
eBay. Like,
To
what
me,
are they
yeah,
going to do with it? Like, what is it that
that's
they
an
going to do?
article.
Is it like are they going to use it like holy water? They're going to like splash it around their house and be like, "This place is clean." Like,
Yeah, that's an
from
actual
black
article
people, I
that
guess.
you could. That's an actual article that someone is doing something that
Yeah,
ridiculous. To put in perspective, one of my first bosses in New York had used to work in advertising for Hardee's, and was responsible going around to figure out like their new pitches, or whatever. And they had pitched one specific type of burger, barbecue, whatever burger thing. And it lasted for a while. It didn't sell well, so they got rid of it. And that's not a story that happens all the time, right? Now, what
yeah,
is a story that I feel is worth telling you is that she found out just randomly that, wait a minute, it looks like it's coming, she was doing her research, like, wait a minute, it looks like some random Hardee's in Georgia is still selling this. How are they still selling? And we've technically taken it off the menu. So she
yeah.
calls them and she takes them, and he's like, no, I mean, you can't take that away from us. Everyone loves it here and we're still selling it. It's like, well, no, we don't really want to, we don't stand by it. So we'd rather you not sell it. And they had a big fight. And then it gets to the point where it's like that thing that hits you. And she's like, well, wait a minute. Like there was a very special type of bun that went with how are you selling? And he was like, when you told us that we were going to, get rid of it, we started stockpiling the buns like for like the weekend, like just essentially getting extra orders. So
Yeah.
essentially there's a whole back room of like 2 year supply of the extra buns to make this burger that they banned. And that's amusing. That's the story. So, you know, someone saying, look, we're gonna shift from Splash Mountain, being it based on Song of the South, a movie no one has seen, not even the
Yeah, no
parents
one's
or
I've
the
never seen it. My
grandparents,
parents, like,
because it's racist, and we're going to put it now with Princess and the Frog, a film that we do release. It's a logical business choice, and instead the
and
freak
have
out
seen.
became,
Because kids
and
aren't going
this
to be like, "Oh boy, let me go to the Song of the South ride that I've never seen."
no,
Kids,
yeah,
like, they want to go on ride, like everything else aside, kids want to go on rides based on things that they've actually seen with their like eyes.
and
Um,
so the response then became, uh we're collecting the splash, but like that's absurd, right? The collecting the water is
yeah,
demonstrably absurd. So if I'm making fun of that, forgive me that I didn't just write a Wonkette article about some routine shift in Disney's marketing strategy. That wouldn't
yeah.
interest me. The latter interests me. So, Charlie Sykes writes this as
Bring
the
back
pattern being
Captain EO. Sorry.
someone on the left oversteps, but it's again investigating whether gas stoves will kill people is not overstepping. It is just basically, I think, something you should do. The right freaks out. Many on the left respond with, "How? Wow! Can you believe what the right is freaking out about now?" Maurer, the writer, says the third response is legitimate. He writes, but I also think it's incomplete. The problem that it fails to note that the thing that the right is freaking out about is indeed pretty harebrained. And I think this comes to what I see as this sort of the challenge with the left of center coalition is that there are
Yeah.
a lot of, and not just white moderates, I would say, especially in the arts, because I've met them,
Hmm.
white men, liberal, who identify as liberals, who believe they're liberals.
Yeah.
I call them like sort of the circle of Bill Maher, different
Yeah.
variants of Bill Maher. They define themselves as liberal, not conservative, but they believe the left is it's just absurd, is too woke, too concerned about things that they believe don't make sense. And so what they want, and you've been asked this to do as a good liberal, that we need to spend more time beating up on these people and calling them out as idiots, which is something the right doesn't do, because that's not how you maintain a coalition. Beating up your own supporters is not sort of a fun game. It's sort of, if you're a pathological liar like George Santos, you would know
Mm-hmm.
that, hey, I'm going to be fully protected by my gang because because I'm a member of that gang. And so here's my voting card, and they're going to protect me as long as I follow the rules. And the left doesn't get that per se. It's like the liberal have, here's my liberal voting card. No, we're still want to have what they often say, that sister soldier moment.
Yeah.
I need to throw. It's not enough you voted for me. I need to throw you under the bus. Some random professor who teaches, genders queer studies, like someone has suggested, I think it was Max Boot, that there needed to be some sort of sister soldier moment where Biden is picking a fight with some random black woman. Now, and we're told
Yeah.
that black women are the base of the party, but some random black woman professor, you need to beat her up publicly, because that will show white people that you have us under control, I think.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is that people have it in their heads that there is some amount of, not woke or whatever, or, good we could be, that would make Republicans be nice to us and stop criticizing anything that we do. And that is not the case. That is not actually going to happen. Like, there's not some wonderful sweet spot where, we're just so milquetoast that no one can say anything bad about us at all. And that, Republicans can never criticize us in a way that will resonate with their people. It doesn't exist. If we were that boring, if we were that, whatever these people think would be a good idea, they would still find things. They would find very small things and they would go bananas over that. Most of the things that they're freaking out about, for the most part, are these teeny tiny little things that are like you said, random marketing decisions. They're, random professors like saying things that they happen to disagree with, and they're going off the deep end. And their position is to go off the deep end on everything. Everything is turned up to 11, and there's no middle ground. There's no, oh hey, maybe they just, wanted to appeal to a different audience that isn't us. There's none of that. It's they caved to the woke mob that was literally not asking them to do anything. Like,
isn't it somewhat of a dilemma, again, from left of center versus the left of center coalition and the right of center coalition? Because when Marjorie Greene talks about white Christian nationalism,
mm-hmm.
at her core, what she is arguing about, what she proposes, your so-called good moderate Republicans agree with, like Mitt Romney, yeah, Susan Collins, they agree with it. They don't like, okay, could you make it less Nazi? Like, as you say, it's about, yeah, can you be more polite about it? But so it's all about kind of a superficial polish. And I think where it becomes a challenge, and I think someone like yourself has experienced, is that you'll try to get, the idea is you'll get from a left, a moderate or a Democrat, can I just polish your position? It's like, well, no, you can't polish what I believe. I fundamentally believe this. So it's not like a superficial, yeah, sense of make my position on police reform or prison abolition or whatever fit into, and about that we shouldn't have war. Like, no, I think no, you think we should still have wars, but maybe not dumb wars. Like, no, here's what I
maybe
believe.
we can still have good wars, right?
And so it becomes harder to make it. There's a fundamental disagreement, a disalignment,
oh yeah,
within the left of center, especially amongst academics. And I think critical race theory was a huge part of that. I'd like to again read from this article. This is a big issue during the off-year campaigns of 2021, and the official Democratic talking point was that critical race theory was not being taught in schools, which was technically true, but it ignored the fact that there was some weird lefty garbage seeping into the curriculum. So he's always sort of revealed himself
It's
that he
weird and
believed it's
spooky. Like,
lefty garbage.
no.
I parodied the semantic dodge in an article called "We Are Not Teaching Post-Funk, Techno-Industrial, New Metal in Schools. We are teaching funk-infused, synthetic, post-punk, neo-metal." He thinks he's very clever, apparently. What's interesting here is that this guy, this white guy, when he says weird lefty garbage, I'm hardly one to be about credentials, right? But okay, you're just this guy who writes for John Oliver, and you've sweepingly dismissed as garbage the entire works of Bell Hooks and Angela
Kimberly
Davis, and
Crenshaw and yeah,
like 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 the fact that you won't even engage
Angela
it
Davis. Yeah.
as you're not even engaging it as relevant points or a
Mhm.
point of view worth discussing. It's all just absurd to the point where it is that you would say post-funk, techno, industrial, new metal versus funk-infused, synthetic, post-punk, neo metal. And that's a common sort of white male liberal thing I've
Well,
encountered this
the thing
sense of.
about critical race theory is that some of it is just common sense. Like you, yes, a woman who is black and also, a woman who is black is going to experience both racism and sexism. This is not like a, radical concept. It's just a fact of being alive. You couldn't say, oh, okay, well, no, she doesn't experience sexism or she doesn't experience racism, because that would
Yeah.
make no sense. Which one would they pick? Like,
Well, and intersectionality, which again is part of critical race theory that is getting often dismissed and attacked, is what's frustrating is that has addressed the issue of, we see this time and time again, of where how you call yourself a feminist, but you're not excited that this badass lady,
yeah.
Amy Coney Barrett in the Supreme Court, or this badass lady is going to be a CEO of the pollution industries. It's like, well, no,
More
because
female billionaires.
Bell Hooks covered this,
Yeah,
like in the
but,
class you banned, which is that feminism is not self-actualization; it's more than that. So,
mhm.
um, so they've actually, this stuff has actually addressed the stuff that Republicans later love calling liberals hypocrites about. And it's like, well, we've already answered this in the stuff that you now consider crazy. And so this guy, I'm sorry, this is just so peak white dude. Normie liberals like me, he's normal. He's a normal liberal,
Yeah.
Robin, not like you. Normie liberals like me are embarrassed by lefty idiocy. So we sometimes act like it doesn't exist. So, obviously this is a part of the article that Charlie Sykes puts in bold because he's very impressed by that, um, when the right devolves into
Oh, I
hysterics
find that embarrassing.
over some cultural bullshit, we pretend like they're reacting to nothing. Well, they are. It is like, yes, a black family moved into the neighborhood. That's true. Burning across the yard is bad. That should not happen. That is an overreaction that
Yeah.
we should be writing about. And it really is. It's sort of like, well, why didn't you cover when the black family moved into this neighborhood and lowered my property
And so
taxes?
why say why that's bad? Both
Um,
sides.
Both Fox News freakouts are in response to a thing that is, in fact, quite dumb, if also completely trivial, not representative of opinions held by most people on the left. So there's a lot going on here, which sort of, he dismisses a lot of this stuff as quite dumb, but also says it is not representative of opinions held by most people on the left. And we see this a lot. So it's common for Democrats a certain mainstream Democrat to insist that the base of the party is not people like you, Robin. It is,
Yeah.
Black women from South Carolina. Now, I grew up with Black women from South Carolina, and I will tell you that their politics are not conveniently identical to Nancy Mace, country
And
club, suburban white ladies. And so when it seems like a shield whenever certain white liberals will say,
mhm.
like, the true base of the party. That's why I can't support Katie Porter, or that's why I can't support Elizabeth Warren. That's fine. You don't have to like these people. But when you say, no, because I'm going to vote like these Black ladies, you're sort of using them as a human shield for your own politics, which I think is kind of gross.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about the quite dumb ideas and arguments, you know, it is not, you're talking about great Black woman thinkers and Black queer thinkers and Black, it's, you know, you're attacking people of color, queer people, marginalized groups. So you claim as a party and as a movement to represent, to
Mhm.
want to protect marginalized people, but you don't want to hear from them. And it's sort
Yeah.
of, it's only about the level of liberalism that you will tolerate from that group. Like, okay, this is what I believe, and this is what's okay. If this is what Rachel Maddow agrees with, then that's okay. And I feel like that's not, it's very frustrating to me, and I see it often. This guy's very reflective of something I've seen a lot. So I won't name the play, but I saw this play in Seattle years ago, and it was credited as being this guy who's a white male, defined himself as liberal, being brave enough to go after his own, you know, group, in this case, liberals.
Mhm.
But if you watch the play, it's like, oh, well, oh, right, it's about how silly feminists are and how office
Yeah.
politics and sexual harassment laws are sort of goofy. And oh, look, there's this kind of butch lesbian character as a joke, which is very 1990s, but okay.
Yeah.
And here's, so it's kind of like, well, no, you know, at least when Rush Limbaugh is like, here, I'm making fun of all these minorities, no one says, wow, Rush Limbaugh's brave enough to make fun of people in his group. Like, no, they know that he's punching down. And so it felt like this guy was getting this all this credit for, like, well, no, you're just a white, it's like the Bill Maher thing. You're just a white guy who's talking about how stupid
Mhm.
feminists and, you know, certain Black people are. And it is, you know, I find that obviously infuriating, but it's sort of a
Yeah.
common theme when we come to this issue.
One of the things that I think all of this inherently overlooks is the fact that a lot of left wing thought is based on conversation and analysis and discussion. So, yeah, a lot of people are going to have a different, you know, have different views. We're going to talk about them. It's not always going to be, you know, we're serving everything perfectly done here. No, things are a discussion, they're an ongoing conversation. And what a lot of this does is it, you know, picks out pieces and makes, you know, they invent their own definitions of them. They invent, you know, their ideas of what's going on because they're not paying attention to the whole conversation that is happening and trying to pick out things that they think are, you know, silly or ridiculous or stupid and just ignoring the fact that like they're part of a larger conversation that is being had. And you know, that's how we come up with good ideas, by discussing them. If we can't discuss things, if we can't, you know, throw things out there, then you know, we're never going to grow. And I, you know, do think that one of the things that is good about the left is that we do discuss things and we are not, you know, at least those of us who are not afraid that, oh no, the conservatives are going to hear and they'll be mean to us about it. Like, oh my God, weren't any of you picked on in school? Jesus. Like I know that sounds dumb, but like it is the first thing that you learn if you are a target in school is that there is nothing you can do to make these people like you. You can, you know, try your hardest to dress like them. You can try to be like them. You can try to disappear. They're still not going to like you. And you have to learn to be okay with that.
Um, and so, yeah, so I come to this, it's like, he sort of ends this article with, we have some extremely embarrassing people on our side. And that seems very familiar to things I've seen in our own comments and I've seen
Mhm.
online, the idea of our side. So it's just sort of like, well, presuming that you are part of our side, even though clearly everything I say indicates you're not, that you're someone I'm embarrassed by or don't like, and I'm just going to beat up on for the purposes, as you just said, proving to people that I am, you know, objective enough to beat up on people I didn't agree with
Yeah.
already, which doesn't make you that actually objective. Um, but we don't want to talk about them, and we don't want to risk driving them out of our coalition. So instead of saying, yes, thing X is stupid, but that overreaction is also stupid, we try to focus on what's important. We skip the first part and talk exclusively about Tucker Carlson. Politically speaking, calling the people you expect to support you and vote for you stupid and not even trying to engage with them. Like there's no point in this guy's article that he thinks, hey, maybe
He's
this.
not specific about anything is the main thing. Like he's like, whenever these people talk like this, they're never specific. They never say one specific thing that actually happened that, was pushed by the left or anyone in particular. It's always like vague, they're weird and we don't like them. Like they do not come
Well,
up with
yeah,
specifics.
they
They're not
refuse
quoting
to.
anyone.
They won't look at they won't engage in kind of presuming that someone might come from a position of they know what they're talking about. So it's not like, oh,
Mhm.
how stupid Cori Bush's positions are. Instead of laying like, okay, well, here's why I disagree. I respect you enough to engage with you at this point. Same with like any sort of liberal. I'm not particularly. I have mixed opinions on affinity groups, which is a concept that a lot of Mona Charon is writing about the Bulwark as well.
Mhm.
I've seen it at school. I'm not crazy about it, but saying affinity groups are stupid is to not engage with the
Hold on.
idea.
My personal understanding of affinity groups, like in activism, is just like a group that you do activism with. Is there
No,
a
it's
difference?
more of
Like
a sense of
in anarchism, that's a
affinity group nights or affinity group things where it's this evening of theater is for Black people, or this
oh,
school
okay, okay,
night is
gotcha.
for Black families only. So those kind of affinity group events I have mixed feelings about.
Mhm.
um, but I don't believe that it is I just don't dismiss it out of hand. It's like, well, let's talk
Yeah.
about it and talk about the pros and cons. And I think instead, this idea that this group is there's no engaging from this guy is just
Mhm.
I I have existed in my sort of white male liberal bubble. There's no way that there's anything I don't understand. If I don't fully
Mhm.
understand it, it's stupid and dumb. And that is something that regardless of party, that kind of elitism, if you look at the history of
Yeah.
the past 7 years, has been rejected. There's a reason that when these same people will then think, well, why are we losing working class voters, or why are we losing these people it's like, well, because no one likes pretentious people claiming that they know
Yeah.
better than them and say that they're stupid. And it's just not
So
something you
weird.
hear.
Crazy wild concept there.
There's no Nancy Mace from the same country club says she's only going to say that someone is stupid who's from the left. Say with Nikki Haley, they're
Mhm.
not attacking other Republicans as stupid. And yes, you might get them privately staring at Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, but they're not going to go on television. They don't see any political benefit to that. And they're right, because from a human nature standpoint, no one likes feeling like you think they're an idiot.
Yeah.
So thanks for
Also, if you're going on there calling us stupid and you're like, we're the moderate, normal version of that, that's still not going to sound good to them. I know, like, I don't like moderates are really, really big on this whole like the lesser of two evils is actually good thing. And I think that's terrible marketing. I'm not saying this as like an activist or a leftist or anything. That's just bad marketing. Stop saying you're part evil. And that in a way, they're doing that as well. They're like, well,
no,
we're like
it's
these
like,
people,
yeah,
but less so. Stop it. Just be like, I
it's like
think
at
my
Arby's.
opinions are good.
It's like at Arby's versus uh Taco Bell for the dinner type discussion. It's like, that's once you've got to that point, it's not that exciting. It's like, okay, both of these are bad, but one is probably going to cause me the least amount of gastrointestinal distress. Make me choose this one. Is not encouraging. You
But
should
that's not how
probably
they
go with.
advertise. They advertise like, come have a chalupa. Chalupas are great.
Yeah, they make it look like
I don't know what.
if you're gonna have the best party in the world at
Yeah,
Taco Bell. So
like I don't get that as a marketing thing, and I like no offense, I think it's partly a Gen X thing where people are like, what's really appealing is self-deprecation. It's like
all right.
everyone's Janine Garofalo.
So we're at our half hour. Thank you for coming back to discuss this with me. I think it was important because I know it is. I feel like it's an
What? No, it's an entirely
ongoing
different day.
debate.
That's why I'm wearing a different outfit.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. So, well, please like, share, subscribe, kick in us for a Patreon, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care.